Not everything you do with data requires a full-fledged database application. Today, I'm going to show you one way to enter data into a spreadsheet in a way that makes your data easy to find and use. You can implement this solution in your own version of Microsoft Excel, even if you're using the free online version. Let's take a quick look at what this solution entails. You'll create a two-worksheet workbook. The first worksheet will house the main data you're collecting. The second worksheet will house the list of options you want to use for the dropdown. You're going to take advantage of built-in features of Excel. The table, which is so much more than the list of information you've typed in, and something called data validation. This setup will make it easy for you to change your list of dropdowns without having to update any of the reference formulas. Since this video is for general information purposes only, I'm going to use a really simplified version of managing guest invitations for an interview-style podcast. But if you want help setting up your own spreadsheet for your own use case, please reach out to me, Barbara Olsavsky, the owner and data wrangler at Blue Designs LLC, on Calendly or LinkedIn. Let's set up the worksheets. You'll want to create a new workbook for this. By default, new workbooks only have one worksheet, so use the plus button next to the Sheet 1 tab to create a second worksheet. And now you'll give the worksheets descriptive names. Right-click on the Sheet 2 tab, select Rename, type Dropdowns, and hit Enter. Right-click on the Sheet 1 tab, select Rename, type Podcast Invitations, and hit Enter. To make sure you don't lose your work, this is a really great time to save your workbook with a descriptive name like Podcast Guest Invitations. Let's set up the main data collection worksheet, Podcast Invitations. For this example, you're basically managing a list of people with invitation status, contact information, and some notes. On this worksheet, you'll create columns for all of this information. Reserve cell A1 for some descriptive worksheet annotation, and then in row 2, add column headers for name, status, date contacted, profile info, and notes. Status is where you'll store the invitation response, and will pull from your predetermined list of standardized options, your dropdown. Let's set up the dropdown list for the status options on Worksheet Dropdowns. For this list, you need a single column of data, which you'll label with the header Statuses. You can put this list anywhere, but I'll start in cell A2. Immediately below that, you'll type in your list of statuses. I'll use 5. Ghosted, not interested, interested, scheduled, and recorded. To make this list easy to reference and easy to update, if you decide to add or remove options in the future, you'll use Excel's built-in table functionality. Select all of the options and the column header, and from the ribbon, select Insert and Table. In the pop-up window for Create Table, double-check that Excel is listing the range of cells you wanted to select, A2 to A7, and then make sure that the option for My Table Has Headers is checked, and select OK. A few things have happened here, like formatting the list so that alternating rows are colored for easier readability. Excel has also put a small visual indicator in the bottom right corner of the bottom row of the table. This tells you where Excel thinks the table ends. Now, you've got one more step to make this easy to reference, and that's giving this new table a descriptive name. If you select any cell in the Statuses table, a new menu will appear on the ribbon called Table or Table Design. Select that, and then all the way on the left side of the ribbon, type a short name for this table. I'll use the prefix T for table, and then the word status, no spaces, and no special characters. The list of status options is now ready to use. Let's add that drop-down list to the status column of the main data table on Worksheet Podcast Invitations. Now, what would make this ideal is if the list of status options is only added to rows where you've entered other data, and that it's automatically added as an in-cell dropdown as soon as you start entering any of the other data on that row. So let's make that happen. by first making sure that the data on this worksheet is also stored inside an Excel table, and then hooking up the status table to the status column of the invitations. In this case, you don't have any invitation data yet, but you can still create the table structure so it's ready to go. Select all of the column headers, and then one row of empty cells below those headers. With that selected, go to the Insert menu in the ribbon and select Table. In the pop-up window for Create Table, make sure that the option for My Table Has Headers is checked and select OK. You should see the same type of formatting applied to this table as you did with the status table. Now let's add the drop-down list of the status options to the status column. Select the empty cell immediately under the status header, and in the Data menu of the ribbon, select Data Validation. You'll set the validation criteria in the following way. Under Allow, select List, because you'll be pulling from a list of options. For the source, you'll reference the status table you created on worksheet dropdowns. What's great about the statuses being an Excel table is that you can use that table on any worksheet of the entire workbook just by using the table's name and the column name. No more cell references, no more worksheet name references. But for this, you will have to wrap the table reference in a function called indirect. In the source box, type in the formula $indirect, open parenthesis, double quotation mark, tstatus, open bracket, statuses, close bracket, double quotation mark, close parenthesis. What this does is tell Excel to find the statuses column of the table tstatus and return the list of things it finds there. I'll caveat that the indirect function is known as a volatile function and can slow down your workbook. But for a small data set like this one, you shouldn't really see too much of a performance hit, and you get a lot of advantages. As a last point on this window, the checkbox for In Cell dropdown is checked by default. This is what gives you the nice dropdown interface for selecting from a list. So make sure that stays checked. To save your data validation criteria and close this window, select OK. Now, when you select one of the status cells in the list of invitations, you should see an arrow to the right of the cell. Clicking on that arrow will expand the list of options, and you can select one from the list. I'll type in some test data to demonstrate the table's functionality. I'll enter my name, and I'll use the arrow to select an option from the drop-down list. That takes up the one blank row you created when you created the table in the first place. If I type in another name in the next row, note how Excel has moved that bottom quarter indicator to let you know that this new row has been added to the table. It's important to not skip rows so that Excel will automatically resize the table to include your new data every time. And the drop-down list has also been automatically added to the status column of the new data row and is ready to use. Is the drop-down list added to every cell in this column of the worksheet? No. If you select cells in the status column that are not part of the table, they do not have the data validation list added to them, so they're not bloating your file size unnecessarily. Excel will only add this as you need it, and you tell Excel you need it by typing new data into the next empty row. If you prefer typing over selecting from a list, and you know what the options are, you can type your selection into the status column cell. If you misspell or try to use an option not in the list, you will get an error because you've set things up to force the data in this column to be one of the list options. And that's how you keep this column clean. If you accidentally select an option and want to reset the cell back to blank, simply select the cell and hit the delete key to clear it out. How does this method make your data easy to find and sort? I'll quickly demonstrate. Check out those arrow buttons on the right side of every column header of the table. If you click on one, you'll see that you can use these to sort and filter the entire table of data automatically. Alphanumeric sorting, ascending and descending, are your first two options. If you select one of these, you'll see that the column header's arrow button gets another little arrow next to it, indicating the sort order you've applied to that column. You can also use that arrow button to filter your data using a simple checkbox interface. What's nice about this is that it shows you only the values you've used in your dataset, not all of the possible options. If you want to show just the people who had expressed interest in your podcast and that you still need to schedule, you could use the checkboxes to show just those entries in the table by unchecking everything except interested. That hides all of the rows that do not match the selection, and you'll have two visual indicators that the filter is on. First, the arrow button in the column header now shows a filter. The second indicator is that the row numbers on the left side of the worksheet are no longer continuous. There are some numbers missing. To show everything again, simply go back into the filter and select Clear Filter. And you can apply sorts and filters to multiple columns at a time. For instance, you could sort entries by name or date contacted, and then apply a filter to status to show only those folks that you need to schedule with. Nicely sorted in alphabetical order. Now it's your turn. How will you use dropdowns to more easily collect, find, and use your data? Where have you been typing in data manually when that data is well suited to a standardized list of dropdown options? Let me know by leaving a comment below right now. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Thank you for watching.